Hi everyone and welcome to my mixed media channel. It is Karen here with you today. Today I'm going to share with you a layout that I have done in my large dilutions journal. And I'm just starting off by adding some gesso onto my pages. I tend to use quite a lot of gesso. You really don't need to use as much as what I do. I don't know why I do that, but I do. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's a good way for me to start off getting into the creative process. Like, I know it's just plain white, but it does help me to get into the mood. So I've grabbed out some Amsterdam acrylic paints, which I'll put a list of what the colours are below. And I've got a Stamperia rice paper of a beautiful pink lady, and I really wanted to use that in my journal today. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a background with the paints, and I'm using my fingers. The reason why I'm using my fingers is so that I can mix my colours together to get a nice blend from one to the other. Now, on this page that I'm doing here, you will actually see there's quite a big patch of pink right in the middle, and that's just because I was going to put my rice paper over the top. And I know when you put rice paper over the top, it becomes a little bit translucent, and I didn't want too much of a really bright pink or purple under that bit of rice paper. So I'm just kind of putting it there in the middle and putting some of the colours around the outside. So I've got half of my page done, so now I'm just going to move over to the other side, again continuing on with the same process. So I'm kind of using one finger for each colour, and then going back and smooshing the colours in together so I can get a nice little blend happening between the two. And I've missed a little bit right in the middle of my gutter of my book, so I've had to go back and fix that. So yeah, just be aware, my book is starting to get well, I'm not even halfway through, but it's quite chunky. So yeah, one side of my book is up a little bit higher, and anyway, you get what I mean. So I fixed it. So now I'm just continuing on with my paint colours, smooshing those colours in and around each other, getting them to blend in quite nicely. And of course, as I'm going along, my paint is drying on me, so I'm having to go back and add in some of the other colours beside the one that I'm doing. So like where I'm using the pale pink, I might have to grab a little bit of the darker pink or purple to help mix and blend those colours in together because the paint has dried on me. That's because it's very thin. It's very thin layers. So yeah, even though it's the middle of winter, it did dry on me quite quickly. So now I've got this beautiful stencil, and this stencil is from Stamperia. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a blend, the same as what I've done on my background, through my stencil with my sponge. So I'm not changing my sponge in between picking up the different colours. So I'm just grabbing a bit, adding it in, and then smoothing out the colour through the stencil with the darker colour. So now I'm coming over to the other side and doing the same thing. And I completely bugger this side up because the phone rings. And I've left my stencil on there, which is not a good thing to do. So when I actually came back from my phone call and was trying to take my stencil off, it had actually glued to the page. So a whole bunch of paint and paper got ripped off. Yeah, totally awesome. I was so wrapped with that. So in the end, I've actually had to redo that side of the page again with my paint, smoothing it out, blending it all out to cover up the holy bits where the paint got ripped off. And then you can see me going back over with my stencil finally and blending those paint colours together through the stencil to make it all pretty again. Yeah, so don't leave your stencil on your work to dry because it just wrecks it. Anyway, so now I've ripped the edges off my rice paper. I'm just ripping them a little bit closer to the girl, and some of the fibres in the rice paper are actually quite fat, so I've actually had to cut them with the scissors. So now I've got my mixed media glue from Stamperia, which is basically just a gel medium, and I'm just gluing her down. So you can see why I did that pale pink behind her skirt, because if I'd put the brighter colour through it, it would have actually shown through. So on that rice paper sheet, there's also some butterflies. So I'm just going to cut a few of them out, rather than ripping them, because I'll probably rip them in half. So I've cut them, and I'm just going to glue them on to the side there as well. So she's starting to look pretty cool. So I'm going to get her dry. And then I'm going to come back in over the edges with a bit more paint, just to help blend it in, yeah, and make it a bit more, yeah, so that she's in the foreground and not in the background. So you can see me smoothing some of those papers, paint around, sorry, and I am losing a little bit of my stencil, but some of my paint is actually really quite translucent, so you can actually still see it underneath, which does give a pretty fancy look to it when you look at it closely. So it's got extra layers in it. So yeah, it's looking pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with it at the moment. So while I'm doing this page, I'm actually waiting for my marks to come through from my graphic design course. So I'm trying to take my mind off things, you know, worrying about, oh, how much am I going to have to redo, and, you know, have I completely stuffed it up, and all that kind of thoughts, you know. So, and my friend was also having the same kind of thoughts running through. We were talking about it, like, oh, it's so hard, trying to get from one thing to the other and making sure that you've got it all correct and right and everything. There's quite a lot to it, actually. Anyway, so to take my mind off waiting for that to come through, I'm doing my art journal. So the stamps that I've got there are from Prima. They're just some little butterfly ones, and I'll just stamp those around as well to help carry on with the butterflies that I've got stuck on the other side. Now, my quote there, I am writing it out with a Stabilo all pencil, so that if I haven't got it in the right spot, I can actually wipe it off, which you can see me do before I actually get out my Posca pen and write over the top of it. I just wanted to get the spacing right before I did it. So the quote is, "Tell the negative committee that meets in your head to sit down and be quiet," which I thought was quite appropriate for the day, because I had all these negative thoughts running through my head, that, yeah, my assignments and stuff are not going to work out, and they're all going to be crappy, and I'm going to have to do them all again, which wasn't the case at all, because I hardly had to do anything to them. They were awesome. So yay me. Anyway, you can see that I've wiped a bit off on my Posca there, because I wrote it and I didn't like it, so I rubbed it out, and then I wrote it again, but then it was too big for the rest of the writing. So then, third time lucky, I wrote it out and it was right. So now I've got a Stabilo Woody in gold, and I've just put that around the outside of my lady, and I'm just wetting the Stabilo with a bit of water on my paintbrush, just to help smooth it out. So the last thing that I'm doing is I've got my deep gold acrylic ink here from Amsterdam, and I'm just adding in, some dots here and there. I really like the touch of gold on my pages. I think, yeah, to me, it just makes them look so much more, I don't know, special maybe. But yeah, I really like the gold look. The acrylic ink actually does take a little while to dry, so anyway. So here's some of the pictures of my work. You can actually see where I've put the gold, how the stencils come through, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. So thank you so much for watching today, and please like and subscribe. Okay, bye.